from the other contributors. So I'm delighted to introduce our first guest, Sarah Selby. Sarah is the artist behind Artificial Evolution, which is our first commissioned artwork in the programme, and it's actually available for you to try today. So I'll pass on the limelight to Sarah now so she can introduce the insights behind her work.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Sarah Selby. I'm an interdisciplinary artist and I explore digital culture through creative applications of emerging and pervasive technology. For the downloadable brain, I've made a participatory machine learning artwork that's going to learn and feed on the knowledge of its visitors throughout the duration of the exhibition. So you can keep checking back and it should kind of evolve into a collective brain throughout the course of the show. So this is it at the moment. It needs a bit more input from, sorry, I need to screen share, don't I? Yeah, so at the moment it's just a little embryo. It needs the input from visitors in order to kind of improve and feed on the knowledge. So upon visiting, the visitors are kind of invited to select images of brains from a selection of tools. And upon confirming, these will be added to the machine learning model, and eventually a kind of collective brain is going to emerge from everybody's contributions. So I'll just talk a little bit more about the themes and the research behind it. So I wanted to kind of explore it from quite a current standpoint. I think like often when we approach the notion of a downloadable brain or mind uploading, we do it from quite a futuristic standpoint. So these are some of the headlines of stories in the media which kind of focus on immortality. So can we really cheat death by downloading our brains? These kind of like really sci-fi cyborgs and achieving immortality through mind uploading. But I guess for this artwork, like what I wanted to focus on is how our brains are kind of already being augmented by our environment and the technology that we interact with. I think we often kind of consider our brains to be these kind of like impenetrable fortresses, and we see them as holding the essence of our being, which I think is why there's so much focus around immortality whenever we talk about this kind of topic. But like actually our brains are quite fluid and malleable organs that are constantly adapting and optimizing to fit the current environment. So the areas that I've kind of focused on with my research is the extended mind theory and humans as natural born cyborgs by Andy Clark, neuroplasticity and the impact of our environment and tools on our brains, and also our role in AI cognition, so how we can kind of become part of artificial intelligence mental apparatus. So this is a quote from The Extended Mind by Clark and Chalmers, and it asks, where does the mind stop and the rest of the world begin? So the extended mind thesis identifies a mental apparatus that extends far beyond our biological bodies and into the physical worlds around us. So they kind of reject this idea that our whole cognitive process takes place simply within the organ of our brain. And they kind of argue that objects and tools form a part of our thinking system. And by that I mean, so things like spoken words and counting can become like written text and numerals. Calculators aid our ability to solve complex math problems. And as we kind of move into the technological, like we've got mobile phones, Google, and all of this. So, and they argue that this cognitive hybridization isn't a modern development, but it's an aspect of humanity that's kind of been happened throughout the course of our evolution. Yeah, so some of the images that come up in the capture are a selection of tools, brains, and all things that can kind of form part of our mental apparatus. So our tools aren't only temporary extensions of our cognitive system. Like, in a way, they become embedded into the physical structure of our minds through neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to physically remodel and reorganize synaptic connections and optimize themselves in the given environment. So technology has the ability to physically restructure our minds. And often I think there's a lot of hype around the long-term impact of this, and it's all very negative, like particularly on younger generations. So they talk about, like, these are just some of the headlines, I think, from like the Daily Mail and the Sun, about kind of young drivers that are unable to read maps, and the Google effect dumbing us down and making us all stupid. And yeah, there's this real kind of fear around our technological dependence equaling dumbing us down. But actually, like, one of the things that I think we should consider is that our minds, that they do evolve to optimize themselves to the environment. So in today's digital kind of world, like, we're so overflowed with information, and it's all available at our fingertips. So it makes no sense to use our cognitive resources to store this information when we can access it so easily, and when there is just so much of it. As Michael Wheeler says, he describes it as computers and search engines forming an external part of our memory system, and describes as kind of adaptive memory that we come across. So even though a lot of this stuff is overhyped, I think it does illustrate the power that our tools can have over our minds, and it highlights the need to be critical of the technology we use and also the intentions of its creator. So in the digital age, our neuroplasticity is a bit of a double-edged sword, particularly when, like, the malleability of our mind is exploited by external parties without our consent, or in many cases knowledge. And the impacts can have really negative effects on our autonomy, our democracy, and also our mental health. There's a researcher, Larry Rosen, that's done some really interesting research around technology and the mental health pandemic, and how our cognitive responses to technology can mimic those of psychological disorders such as ADHD. So as our tools become smarter, there's an underlying power dynamic that emerges that didn't previously exist. They're not just passive actors anymore, but they're objects with intent, and that intent isn't always clear to the user or necessarily aligned with our motives and desires. So, for example, when I open Instagram, my intention isn't to spend 2 hours scrolling through like an endless feeds of people that, you know, I don't really know. But that is the intention of the software that's kind of in the attention economy, is trying to keep users engaged and scrolling and interacting for as long as possible. And often the software kind of wins in that battle. So it's kind of interesting to consider, with the emergence of artificial intelligence, to revisit the extended mind thesis and consider how, with AI, for the first time, it's become more of a two-way street. So our tools aren't only an extension of our cognitive processes, but we become an extension of theirs. And the idea for this artwork kind of stemmed from that interdependence between humans and tools, and our tools and our humans. So many of our online activities and interactions are used by big data companies for machine learning purposes, which Shoshana Zuboff talks about in her book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, but she describes the gathering of behavioral surplus. So it's kind of surplus data that is taken from our online interactions, and it's analysed and it's sold on the predictive futures market, where other kind of parties pay for insight into our future behaviours. So the focus on human behaviour is really prominent and it's important, but I also kind of wanted to provoke thinking around the idea of maybe like a cognitive surplus and the automation of machine tasks by humans. So kind of like, how do we feed into machine behaviour? So during my research, I came across capture farms, which the capture farms are used by online bots to solve captures. So I think it's about a third of traffic on the internet is made up of bots, and they come across captures which stand for completely automated Turing test to tell computers and humans apart. And the way it works is that when a bot comes across a capture, it will outsource that capture. It will send it off to someone that's, like, often in a developing country, someone working for really low wage, who will solve it and send it back all within about 30 to 45 seconds. And I found this kind of idea of humans as functions and being built into the software, and this software being able to call on humans in order to achieve its own goal really interesting. And I think it exists everywhere, whether it's kind of automated bosses through platforms like Limber, or whether it's kind of like bots trying to get us to click or keep us engaged, or advert targeting. So that's one of the things that I wanted to kind of question with this artwork, is to have an artwork that's dependent on the audience and their interactions in order to achieve its own cognitive goals. Thanks.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. That was a really wonderful introduction, and I think it's really interesting because we're always thinking about how machines augment our potential, but what you do through your artwork and through your presentation is kind of raise awareness of how actually humans are sometimes built into software itself.